At the Hundred Flowers banquet, the crown prince presented the queen's chosen peony queen to the Su family's daughter. Instantly, all eyes turned to me. Amidst the mockery and ridicule, a few malicious chuckles mingled in. I smiled as I lifted the wine cup before me, my nails digging into my palm. This flower is truly exquisite, a perfect match for Sister Su. Such a splendid union, had I not meddled. May this lifetime's Pei Hemming finally fulfill his desires, possessing both the empire and the beauty. Crown his beloved Su Fuiying as empress. Then my Jiang family wouldn't have met its end in a massacre, and I, the empress of the great Dashing dynasty, wouldn't have been sent to the frontier to serve as a military consort to comfort the soldiers. But without the full support of my Jiang clan, I'll be damned if I don't see how Pei Hemming intends to ascend to the throne. The empress invited noble ladies to attend the Hundred Flowers banquet. On the surface, it was to admire the blooms. In truth, it was to select a consort for the crown prince upon his coming of age. Seeing Pei Hemming offer the peony in his hand to Su Fuiying, the majestic empress, seated upon her throne, paled. Yet the crown prince remained utterly oblivious. He strode directly before Su Fuiying, his eyes brimming with a tenderness that could drown a soul. This flower reminds me of you. I find this sentiment quite fitting for Sister Su. Instantly, all eyes converged upon me. The noble women who secretly envied my betrothal to the crown prince now watched the spectacle with leisurely satisfaction. Amidst the mocking and derisive stares, a few malicious chuckles mingled in. I felt my hands trembling. I lifted the corners of my lips. The empress, seated at the head of the table, gave a few light coughs. Her brows furrowed deeper and deeper. She ordered the senior palace maid behind her to fetch the golden phoenix-headed hairpin bestowed by the emperor during her reign as empress. The meaning was clear. She was openly backing me, the princess of Luan County, and declaring her stance to all present. I, Jiang Xiubai, was the empress's chosen daughter-in-law. Ignoring the crown prince's face darkening as if ink were about to drip from it, she smiled gently, beckoning me to her side. At today's Hundred Flowers banquet, the Western-style crabapple tree you presented is truly exceptional. I hear such divine specimens haven't been cultivated by artisans in many years, even the palace has never seen one. You've truly shown great thought. I shall bestow upon you this phoenix hairpin, which the emperor once gifted to me. She reached out to pin it into my hair. My heart clenched. In my past life, it was precisely when the empress pinned this hairpin on my head that our marriage became utterly irrevocable. After all, the empress favored it. Wearing the phoenix hairpin bestowed by the empress signaled the Jiang family's support for the crown prince. As a bride-to-be, who would dare marry me now? Just as the empress's hairpin was about to touch my hair, Su Fuiying's expression nearly cracked. I glanced down at the banquet hall. A clumsy little palace maid suddenly spilled the sweet soup from her tray onto the crown prince's robes. The crown prince seized the moment. His anger flared instantly. The young palace maid immediately knelt on the ground, repeatedly kowtowing in apology. A commotion erupted at the banquet. The empress's gesture was interrupted. She ordered the palace maid dragged away to receive 30 strokes of the cane. Seizing the moment, I knelt down. I performed a deep bow toward the empress. This phoenix hairpin is a gift from His Majesty, symbolizing the harmonious bond between Your Majesty and the emperor. It further represents Your Majesty's exalted status. This object is truly precious. This humble servant dares not accept it. I beg Your Majesty to take back this gift. Interrupted by the palace maid. The empress was already displeased. She should have had the maid beaten to death. But it was also the time when the empress's maternal uncle had met with misfortune while managing flood control. There was no one left in her family serving in the court. Consort Shu had seized control of the palace, stripping the empress dowager of most of her authority. Finding a powerful consort to aid the crown prince had become exceedingly difficult. To avoid further complications, the empress dowager kept a low profile. Hearing my polite refusal, she narrowed her eyes. Her tone carried a hint of threat. My dear Yao Yao, I watched you and Ming'er grow up together. When you have free time, come visit me more often in the palace. Keep me company. I wore a smile. My expression showed no hint of fault. I respectfully agreed. I wouldn't fall into her trap. But I gave her all the reverence she deserved. No matter how sour her expression grew, she couldn't touch me in the slightest. Later, the empress lost interest. After exchanging a few words, she left the stage to the younger generation. Escorted by her matron, she withdrew. The empress departed. The atmosphere instantly lightened. Pei Hemming sat beside the Su family's daughter. Perhaps seeing how tactfully I had behaved earlier, his expression toward me softened considerably. He even instructed his attendant, Xiao Detzi, to present me with the Western-style mirror he'd acquired recently. A slap followed by a sweet reward. It was his usual tactic. After 3 years of marriage, I knew this former husband well. Pei Hemming was excessively arrogant. Merely showing him a bit more favor in daily life led him to believe I secretly harbored affection for him. Earlier, he even assumed I would willingly offend the empress to facilitate his relationship with Su Fuiying. He chatted with me amiably, oblivious to the situation. Beside us, Su Fuiying's face was nearly contorted. Her marriage to the crown prince hadn't even been formally arranged yet. But now she was already putting on airs like the rightful bride. She glided forward, gently taking my wrist. "Your Highness, the Western mirror you just gave my sister was chosen by us together at Dianyu's studio in the western part of the city. This item is rare, I doubt you could find more than a handful in the entire capital. The moment I saw it, I thought of you. You adore beauty and perfecting your makeup, this mirror will serve you wonderfully." Behind us, the crown prince sipped his wine, watching us with satisfied eyes. Men permit themselves to be fickle, they call it being romantic. But women must remain utterly devoted to one man. And yet, they can still benefit him in every way. Lovely wives and beautiful concubines, power and resources, all at his command. Best yet, if every woman in his inner courtyard cherished him like a sister, loving him to the bone. I examined what the little eunuch held. "Oh. From what you just said, did you buy this to give to me?" Su Fuiying froze. She spoke, slightly embarrassed. "Of course His Highness bought it. And it was His Highness who gave it to you." I feigned sudden understanding. I looked at her with an expression of puzzlement, as if wondering what any of this had to do with her. Su Fuiying's eyes gradually welled up with tears. She timidly curtsied to me. Yet she stubbornly spoke up. "You cannot humiliate me like this. We are destined to be together." Before she could finish her sentence, I lashed out, slapping her across the face. "Hold your tongue. Without matchmaker or betrothal gifts, what connection could a daughter from an honorable family like mine possibly have with the crown prince? Dare utter such filth again, slandering my virtue. And the Jiang family will not forgive you." She was merely the illegitimate daughter of a lowly official. She had no right to stand before me in such a setting. Not yet even married into the family. Yet she dared to put on airs as crown princess consort. Truly unprecedented, a sight to behold. No sooner had I stepped out of the Jiaqing hall than Pei Hemming's voice called out behind me. I halted. He approached me with measured steps, his bearing commanding. Clearing his throat, he said, "You should not have struck Fuiying. Mother originally favored you as my bride, intending to grant us a royal match. But I have set my heart on Fuiying and shall wed her. The imperial household recognizes no secondary consorts, there can be but one crown princess. You refused the empress for my sake. Once I marry Fuiying, considering your discretion, though I cannot grant you the position of principal consort, I will still love and protect you, never causing you sorrow." A smile played on my lips. Inside, I silently cursed this pig-headed fool, always dreaming in broad daylight. The Jiang family was a distinguished line of officials. Generation after generation, its members held high positions in the court. My father, in particular, was the current chancellor, the foremost among the civil officials. I was the cherished, carefully nurtured eldest daughter of the family, groomed from childhood to be the crown prince's consort. Therefore, Pei Hemming believed I was destined to marry him. But I, Jiang Xiubai, was destined to be the crown prince's consort. Since he refused to take me as his primary wife, then I'll replace him as crown prince. Returning home, father and mother had been waiting for me in the front hall since early. Seeing me, mother's eyes welled with tears. She stepped forward and pulled me into her embrace. Yao Yao, you've suffered so much. Today's events in the palace had already reached our household. Thus, father and mother must know I refused the empress's golden hairpin today. They understood my resolve. Father's gaze darkened slightly. If Lady Su offends Yao Yao's eyes, should we? I shook my head. In my past life, I had worn the empress's phoenix hairpin. Knowing I'd been humiliated in the palace by Su Fuiying, father orchestrated her marriage to one of his disciples. Pei Hemming, seeking to gain the Jiang family's influence, even personally served as the wedding witness. With the full backing of my Jiang family, he ascended to the throne. Once he had gradually eroded and dismantled the Jiang family's power, he exterminated my entire clan. And all these years, Su Fuiying had never consummated her marriage with her husband. Pei Hemming praised her chastity. Later, Su Fuiying was carried into the imperial palace as a virgin, becoming empress. As for me, Pei Hemming sent me to the frontier as a military prostitute. On the journey there, I strangled myself to death with my sleeve inside the prison cage. At the brink of death, a fierce will to survive erupts. But a Jiang woman would rather die than be defiled. The prison carriage had barely left the imperial city. 3 cracks of the whip sounded, and the imperial music began. Su Fuiying's coronation ceremony was grand and imposing. Su Fuiying must marry Pei Hemming. And she must enter the Eastern Palace as his primary consort. With such a daughter of a minor official as his crown prince consort, my chosen one will have greater capital to stake her claim. The Jiang family rose to its present stature through the collective efforts of every member. Men battled in the bureaucracy, entering service through the imperial examinations to build their clan's political influence. Women managed the household, forging alliances through marriage with noble families to cement the clan's standing. From childhood, I absorbed my father's political acumen. Guided by my mother, a model matriarch from a distinguished family, I mastered the art of managing the household. I, Jiang Shubai, was born to be empress. His Majesty has few heirs, only 4 sons. The second prince, born to consort Shu, stands as Pei Hemming's fiercest rival. As the princes mature, the emperor often found himself stretched thin. Consequently, the princes began to stir with ambition. Only the 4th prince, born to the late consort Hui, remained a pitiful figure without any backing. Years earlier, the emperor had traveled incognito. In the Jiangnan region, he encountered consort Hui, then a peasant girl. They fell in love and lived as a peasant couple. Later, the emperor returned to the capital. He brought the pregnant peasant girl back to the capital, elevating her to the rank of imperial consort. At that time, consort Hui enjoyed unparalleled favor in the palace. Gradually, rumors began to circulate within the palace. It was said that if the child in consort Hui's womb was a boy, he might one day replace the crown prince. Thus, consort Hui died of hemorrhaging during childbirth, as if it were only natural. Fortunately, the 4th prince, protected by the Empress Dowager, survived the ordeal. Last year, the Empress Dowager passed away. The 4th prince had long fallen out of favor with the emperor, rendering him the least threatening among the princes. The young palace maid who had been beaten in the palace was taken out for medical treatment. I instructed Shui Lian to provide her with sufficient silver to last her the rest of her life. I also helped her re-establish her household registration, allowing her to live as an ordinary citizen. What else does she desire? Shui Lian replied, she said she has no parents left and no ties to bind her. But she does not wish to marry, transitioning from serving a noble lady to serving a husband and in-laws. Therefore, she wants to establish her own female-headed household and open a shop to earn her living. I nodded and ordered arrangements to be made. Xiao Dizhi, a servant of Pei Hemming, was waiting at the gates of the Jiang residence. After escorting him inside, Xiao Dizhi performed a perfunctory bow. His tone was exceedingly arrogant. My master invites you to take a boat out on the lake. In the past, Xiao Dezhi had always relied on the fact that he had been with Pei Hemming since childhood. While his attitude wasn't exactly pleasant, he still showed me a measure of respect. But after yesterday, he probably thought I was hopelessly infatuated with Pei Hemming. Now, he seemed to have completely lost sight of his own place. I watched him coldly. The courtyard was so quiet you could probably hear a pin drop. Xiao Dezhi's earlier bravado had vanished. His knees buckled, and he trembled. He hastily straightened himself and bowed. "Your Highness, the prince awaits my report. If you have no further instructions, I shall take my leave." I gave a slight nod, signaling him to depart. Xiao Detzi received his order. He dashed away in a flash. Once he was out of the courtyard, I set my teacup on the table. Kill him. The day of my meeting with Pei Hemming arrived swiftly. When I arrived by carriage, Pei Hemming was chatting and laughing with Su Fuiying in the pavilion. From afar, they truly were a pair of lovebirds. How amusing. Pei Hemming's apology lacked even a shred of sincerity. After that day, I heard the Empress had severely reprimanded Pei Hemming. His brothers, the quick-witted ones, had already begun reaching out to my father. Such is the nature of court politics. The slightest stir is detected by those seasoned, slick veterans of the bureaucracy. The Empress was now in a state of panic. Today's invitation must have been her firm demand. Seeing me appear, Pei Hemming wore an expression that said, "Just as I thought." He stood up, adopting the manner of a refined gentleman. Considerately, he helped me onto the small boat. "There's a temple fair on the shore today. It's quite lively. Both my sisters are out enjoying themselves. After our boat ride, shall we go see the performances?" Su Fuiying lowered her head and softly agreed. The boat had barely begun moving. When an unfamiliar servant brought us pastries, the boat's motion made it difficult to walk. He lost his balance and nearly spilled the pastries. Pei Hemming frowned. "What a clumsy fool." Then he turned to me. Servants truly become more reliable when trained from a young age, though they may occasionally make minor mistakes. But after punishment, they learn their lesson and remain loyal dogs. "Right, Xiaobai?" I smiled and nodded. He was asking me about that person. Unfortunately, that person was already buried in the Jiang family's back garden, turned into fertilizer for the flowers. That dog had indeed been a good dog when Su Fuiying arrived. In my previous life, to help Su Fuiying, how many false messages had he relayed for me? I was truly grateful to him. To call the person I arranged stupid? That was pure nonsense. He just feigned a fall so convincingly. Su Fuiying sensed my gaze. Her expression suddenly flashed with alarm. She quietly ducked behind Pei Hemming. This time, however, Pei Hemming didn't immediately pull her close to comfort her. Instead, he frowned and scolded her. "What happened to scare you like this? How will you ever be my concubine if you're like this? Besides, Xiaobai didn't do anything just now. Why are you acting this way?" See. Men see right through those petty jealousy tricks women play. Su Fuiying's face instantly drained of color. She stared at Pei Hemming in disbelief. Pei Hemming ignored her completely. Instead, he looked at me with an expression seeking approval. To tease them, I deliberately asked, "What does your Highness mean by this? I recall you presented that peony king to Miss Su. We thought you intended to marry Miss Su as crown princess." Su Fuiying couldn't bear to listen. She bit her lip hard. Tears welled up in her eyes. Pei Hemming laughed heartily. Without proper betrothal rites, it was merely a jest, no binding promise. His voice softened. "What? So Sister Xiaobai truly cherished that flower? How could I refuse?" He turned to Su Fuiying behind him. A flicker of reluctance crossed his eyes. "Bring the flower to me another day. I shall present it to Xiaobai." Su Fuiying forced a nod. As she lowered her head, she used the moment of smoothing her long hair to wipe away her tears with a handkerchief. Such a fragile little white flower. If I were a man, I'd want to hold her close and comfort her. If only she hadn't conspired with Pei Hemming to plot the murder of my entire family. The amusement from earlier vanished instantly. I sat expressionless with them. When the boat reached midstream, I excused myself, claiming seasickness, and went outside for air. Cui Lian followed behind me. She whispered that everything had been arranged. Yesterday, the spy planted in the Crown Prince's residence reported. That scoundrel Pei Hemming had devised such a vile scheme to force me into marriage with him. Next month marks the Empress's birthday. Recently, my refusal before Her Majesty had been too conspicuous. To ensure absolute certainty, they would arrange for me to be defiled by Pei Hemming in public. Losing one's virtue remains a disgrace for a woman. For the sake of my family's honor, marrying Pei Hemming was my only path. As for Pei Hemming's reputation, as long as everyone present keeps their mouths shut, who would risk decapitation to expose this? As for the tongues of those literati in the court, father will handle that for me. But if things don't go as they plan and someone with ulterior motives leaks it, the censure a woman endures is far greater than a man's. Though perilous, this course holds greater odds of success. A whimper, faint as a mosquito's buzz, drifted from the boat pavilion. Pei Hemming cooed softly in soothing tones. I drew closer to listen. Did you summon me today to deliberately humiliate me? Pei Hemming's voice remained gentle. Under current circumstances, this is my last resort. But rest assured, Fu Ying, you alone shall be my wife, and you alone shall be my empress. Fu Ying's tears dissolved into a smile. Then please don't actually touch her when the time comes, okay? Knock her unconscious and use your finger to break her hymen. Pei Hemming hesitated. Silence stretched on. Until Su Fuiying grew impatient waiting. He finally agreed, as you wish. Not long after. Intriguing sounds drifted out from within. Fuiying, we've never tried it on water. I was puzzled. Has the tea been served yet? Cui Lian shook her head. These two were so impatient. They should at least wait until I left. Su Fuiying's coquettish voice rang out. No, what if Jiang Shoubai comes in and sees us? They continued their sweet nothings for a while longer. Only then did the sounds from the inner room fade. I lingered outside for quite some time. I finally went inside, using the excuse that I wasn't feeling well. I didn't want to disturb the two of them enjoying the scenery. After excusing myself, I took a small boat to shore via a shortcut. I sat atop the largest restaurant in the western part of the city. The view below was completely within my sight. The boat carrying Pei Hemming swayed and rocked all the way. As it neared the shore, a boat suddenly shot out from the side at breakneck speed. The helmsman hastily steered to avoid it, but the momentum was too great. The boat slammed into a bridge pier. It capsized. I nibbled on Jinmenla's most famous sweet steamed milk pudding, watching the spectacle below. My planted man immediately shouted, "Help! Someone, help! His Royal Highness the Crown Prince is still inside." The soldiers patrolling the shore rushed over immediately. They feared the Crown Prince might have met with misfortune within their jurisdiction. That would be a capital offense. I saw both of their attendants had already emerged. The two men themselves remained hidden inside, too afraid to show their faces. Just how long could they hold their breath underwater? Cui Lian noticed my puzzlement. She leaned in with a mischievous grin. Your Highness, earlier in the commotion, our men tossed the adulterer's clothes into the water. They're probably hiding underwater now, too scared to come out. Sure enough, moments later, the soldiers who could swim pulled Pei Hemming out of the boat. He was wrapped in the boat's curtain. But the drapery was too short. It barely covered his body. His bare arms and calves were exposed. By then, a large crowd of onlookers had gathered along the shore. Witnessing this scene, everyone was stunned. His face turned ashen as he barked at the onlookers to turn away. But today, it seemed impossible to cover up the scandal. The Crown Prince, in broad daylight, had engaged in illicit relations with a woman in the wilderness. This incident had already caused a tremendous uproar within the court. His Majesty was enraged. He even declared, the realm founded by the ancestral emperor and pacified by this emperor must never be entrusted to one who indulges in sensual pleasures and debauchery day and night. These words nearly severed Pei Hemming's path to the throne. Pei Hemming knelt outside the emperor's bedchamber all night long. He begged only for forgiveness of his indiscretion. The other princes had been waiting for Pei Hemming to slip up. Now they seized upon this, refusing to let go. The marriage to Su Fuiying was put on hold. The empress's intention. A single small sedan chair would carry her discreetly through a side gate. Then they would hasten to marry me as crown princess. To consolidate Pei Hemming's power. I delivered this news to Su Fuiying. Upon receiving it, Su Fuiying's heart trembled. Her dreams had shattered. Worse still, she might now incur Pei Hemming's loathing. Panic surged through her unbidden. Her family background was already shabby. After this affair, her reputation would be utterly ruined. Who wouldn't call her a wanton, promiscuous woman? Su Fuiying regretted it so deeply she could have bitten her tongue off. Had she not assured her father she would win the crown prince's favor, he would likely have had her stuffed into a pig's cage by now. 3 days had passed since the incident. She had sent countless letters through messengers. Yet Pei Hemming remained silent. Pacing anxiously in her chamber, she was at a loss. Cui Lian relayed all this to me. I was playing chess with my father in the courtyard. Yao Yao, how are you getting on with the military treatise I gave you? I nodded. Father, feel free to test me. If the enemy is stronger than you, how should you respond? I placed a black stone on the board. Lead the enemy without being led yourself. Expose their weaknesses and concentrate your forces to attack them. Enter the fray early to seize the initiative. Father nodded. Proceed with confidence. I shall shield you from the empress. With the backing of other princes' factions now fueling the fire, Pei Hemming's reputation has been utterly ruined. Today, he even sent me the peony queen from that day. This flower, nurtured with care by Su Fuiying, blooms even more vibrantly now. I gently pinched its luscious, dewy petals. My fingers pressed hard, and nectar instantly flowed into my palm. Before Cui Lian could wipe it with a handkerchief, 4th Prince Pei Xian immediately stepped forward, crouching to cradle my hand. He carefully lapped up every trace of the nectar, tracing its path from my palm to my wrist. He lifted his moist, innocent eyes. My heart felt as if struck by something. He was of the same type as Su Fuiying. Like a delicate flower beneath the spring breeze. The slightest wind would make it sway precariously. Someone must stand before them, nurturing them carefully, so they could grow. But, a prince of the imperial family. To obtain what he desires, he would squat beneath a woman. The 4th prince is more intriguing than Pei Hemming. At least he knows when to take and when to let go. To ask for favors, yet adopt such a posture, for whom is this display? Lately, whispers have stirred among the common folk. Rumors circulate, spun into fantastical tales. They say old Wang, the honey seller in the east of the city, suddenly found his bees restless and agitated. They formed a coiled dragon shape, its head pointing straight toward the city center. Then a hunter discovered a pregnant tigress digging up a piece of jade from the earth. Its texture was translucent, without a single impurity. The hunter handed the jade to the magistrate's office. They say it was bestowed by the heavenly gods. The empress naturally learned of these reports. She summoned the Imperial Astronomical Bureau. The bureau delivered the explanation I had prepared for them. Your servant observed the celestial phenomena at night and saw the purple star shining with extraordinary brilliance. The purple star is the auxiliary star of the Emperor's star, signifying the prosperity of the heir apparent. Obtaining such a virtuous heir would align with the heavenly mandate above and bring peace to the common people below. The empress pondered briefly. Yet none among the consorts in the inner palace are with child. The astronomical bureau shook their head. This child resides outside the palace walls. He is the heir of the noble son. The empress was startled. She instructed that today's events must not be disclosed to outsiders. Afterwards, the empress urgently dispatched messengers to the crown prince's residence. Pei Hemming had been in a daze these past days, drowning his sorrows in wine. Not a single concubine in the crown prince's residence was with child. Consumed by fury, the Empress Dowager demanded the Imperial Astronomical Bureau account for this failure. Shortly thereafter, she received a letter from Su Fuiying. Su Fuiying had persistently sent letters to the crown prince, yet never received a reply. Thus, she had to devise another course of action. Though deprived of favor, she still possessed status. Her letters could not enter the palace. But with my authorization. This surprise still reached the empress's ears. Su Fuiying wrote in her letter, in a dream, a blue dragon coiled around her abdomen. The next day, a physician took her pulse and confirmed she was over a month pregnant. Such an auspicious sign. The empress immediately ordered arrangements for her marriage to Pei Hemming. The 15th day of this month was deemed an auspicious date. The crown prince was to marry, and the bride was none other than the woman he had met in secret that day. Pei Hemming's reputation was somewhat restored. Though his beloved's family background was unremarkable, the crown prince was still willing to welcome her into his household as crown princess. Everyone praised the crown prince as a man of deep affection and honor. I sat atop the tavern. I saw Pei Hemming seated upon a fine horse. This time, he was marrying the woman he truly loved. Yet why did he seem just as unhappy as in his previous life? The day after their grand wedding, Pei Hemming voluntarily took on the task of managing flood control. This was his final chance to demonstrate his abilities to the emperor. Then, leaving Su Fuiying behind, still in her pregnancy, he departed that very night. In an instant, Su Fuiying became the laughingstock among the capital's elite. Only the empress was willing to invite her for conversation. But the empress's faction held little sway. The son of consort Shu had won the emperor's deep favor. Now wielding most of the palace's authority, his position was akin to that of a secondary empress. This year's hunting grounds were entrusted to the second prince. I stood in full riding gear, longbow in hand. I shot the wild deer charging ahead. One arrow pierced its heart. The deer collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Consort Shu praised my skill, saying it rivaled that of men. Truly the daughter of Lady Zhang's upbringing. My mother beamed proudly beside me. I repeatedly demurred, explaining that in daily life I was as lively as a monkey. Not a trace of a lady's grace about me. Su Fuiying cleared her throat. Indeed, Miss Jiang must eventually marry. Such reckless behavior, how will she ever become a proper mistress of the household? All present shifted uneasily. They all looked at her as if she were a fool. Though she was the crown prince's consort, there were many present far more noble than her. Consort Shu was one of them. Consort Shu had praised my bravery as being no less than a man's. Mother calling me mischievous was merely her being modest. How dare she presume to lecture me? I drew my longbow taut, aiming squarely at Su Fuiying before me. The empress grew frantic. Like a mother bird shielding her young, she spread her arms to protect Su Fuiying behind her. Shouting, "Guards! Protect the crown prince!" I released the arrow skyward. A wild goose plummeted to the ground. Su Fuiying's face drained of color. Ku stood frozen, not daring to move. Guards rushed in from afar with urgent news. The second prince had been ambushed deep in the forest. Everyone's faces turned pale. They all returned to the tent, surrounded by soldiers forming a protective ring. The fourth prince stood before me and mother, sword drawn. "Yao Yao, don't worry. I'll protect you." Consort Shu looked deeply moved. She urgently dispatched everyone at her side to protect the second prince. But none of those sent returned. As dusk fell, one squad of guards finally arrived, carrying the second prince's body, while another escorted the third prince, his arm severed. Everyone knelt on the ground. They urged Consort Shu to compose herself. His Majesty was enraged. His sons had turned against each other, fighting for the throne beneath him. They had drawn swords, leaving both sides wounded. This affair had been orchestrated by Consort Yi and the third prince. Consort Yi was granted white silk. The third prince was stripped of his title, expunged from the imperial registry, and reduced to commoner status. He was imprisoned within the prince's residence, never to leave for all eternity. That night, Pei Heshuan stood outside my window. I asked, "Have you handled the remaining matters?" Pei Heshuan's tone carried a hint of self-satisfaction. "Naturally." Then his tone shifted. "As for the crown prince," I assured him there was no need for concern. But Pei Heshuan remained uneasy. "I've long heard that Yao Yao harbors affection for the crown prince. I wonder if that still holds true." Before he could finish, I pushed open the window and drew close to him. Raising my toes, I silenced him with a kiss. Pei Heshuan flushed crimson. Covering his mouth, he fled. I called after him. "His Majesty has lost 2 sons in quick succession. His grief must be profound. What is most needed at this time?" He nodded. After Pei Hsian departed, Cui Lian reported every detail of what occurred during his flood control efforts. Shall we take advantage of his flood control work and cause him to slip and fall into the water? After all, the Empress's brother also perished during flood control. This task is inherently perilous. Once the floodwaters carry him away, leaving no trace of his remains, who would investigate how he fell? I shook my head. Killing him outright would be too easy. It wouldn't truly satisfy the hatred in my heart. I turned and instructed Cui Lian. Deliver the flood control strategy one wrote to him. Remember, it must be done discreetly. Yesterday, Father had already written this method into a memorial and submitted it. His Majesty was consumed by grief over the second prince's affair. He hadn't had time to review it yet. Once Pei Hemming actually employed this method, he would become the thief who stole the secrets of the inner chambers. Perhaps His Majesty was growing old. Having lost 2 sons in succession, he now placed extraordinary importance on his remaining offspring. The 4th prince was a child he had once cherished. Though usually quiet, he was profoundly filial. In his free time, he would either accompany His Majesty to the imperial gardens for solace or seek out novel and amusing objects to amuse the emperor. As the 4th prince grew increasingly favored, Pei Hemming grew anxious. Coincidentally, the anonymous flood control proposal found its way into Pei Hemming's hands. Building dams, channeling water to combat sand, combining containment with drainage, this approach resolved the half-year-long flood disaster plaguing downstream villagers. Within a mere month, the flood control efforts yielded remarkable results. Pei Hemming personally oversaw the project, determined to restore his standing with the emperor. But upon his return to the capital, during his final inspection, a rock tumbling from the dam struck his left leg. The accompanying physicians could only treat his headache, high fever, and minor bruises. They hurried back to the capital. Yet it was too late. Pei Hemming's left leg could not be saved. To prevent further infection, amputation was the only option. Upon hearing the news, the Empress nearly fainted. With the Crown Prince now physically impaired, he could no longer serve as the heir apparent of Daxing. Led by his father, the civil officials vigorously recommended the 4th prince as the new Crown Prince. Seated in his wheelchair, he clashed with the ministers. He shouted that his achievements were remarkable. He had been wounded while managing the floodwaters. If the emperor were to depose him, it would break the people's hearts. Pei Hemming was still too hasty. The emperor was old. What he could not tolerate now was anyone threatening him with the throne after his passing. Especially when that person was the heir he had personally designated. Father confronted Pei Hemming. Why does your flood control method match the one my daughter conceived in her leisure? Pei Hemming froze. That manuscript, whose origin was unknown, had already been destroyed by him. The credit for flood control was naturally claimed solely by him. Therefore, he never imagined. How could Jiang Shoubai, a mere lady of the inner chambers, have devised such a method? Minister Jiang, do not speak nonsense. Father roared, ridiculous. A month ago, I submitted my daughter's flood control strategy. His Majesty even issued a red-inked imperial decree, praising her brilliance. Pei Hemming tried to speak further. But the emperor cut him off. His voice instantly fell silent. The heir apparent of Daxing could not be disabled. The emperor deposed Pei Hemming on grounds of unfit conduct. On the day Pei Hemming was deposed, I married into the 4th prince's household. A month later, the emperor passed away. Pei Hshuan ascended the throne as emperor. And I became the empress. Before entering the palace, I visited the residence of the deposed crown prince. The courtyard lay in utter disrepair, clearly untouched for a long time. Su Fuiying sat in the front hall, her hands clutching her belly, lost in thought. When she saw me, her gaze was vacant. No doubt from long isolation. Why have you come? To witness my downfall? I sat directly in the seat of honor. What spectacle do you expect to see? She was silenced by my words. Then she lowered her head. I can never match you. I found it somewhat amusing. I have never once compared myself to you. Suddenly, her expression grew agitated. Must you always stand so high above me? On what grounds? Simply because you were born into the Jiang family? I must forever be beneath you? I looked at her. Ever since I knew right from wrong, I've studied every single day, without pause through summer or winter. As a child, father would interrogate me on my lessons. If I couldn't answer, my hands would be struck. I was the sharpest among my siblings, so father's demands were harsher. I never failed to meet his expectations, always striving to do better. Though a woman, I am no less than any man in the art of governing people, the principles of statecraft, or the teachings of the 100 schools. Su Fuiying, my superiority over you extends far beyond mere birth. She froze. Silence stretched on. Where is Pei Hemming? I'm looking for him. Su Fuiying let out a bitter smile. She pointed toward the back courtyard. I followed her gesture. There, crouched on the ground, was a filthy figure, his face vacant and dazed. Has this man truly lost his mind? I looked at Cui Lian. Go fetch a court physician. But this might be a ploy to protect himself. Cui Lian moved swiftly. Before long, she returned with the physician. Su Fuiying, her belly protruding, stood shielding Pei Hemming. Why must you be so cruel? He's already lost his mind, yet you still won't let him be. The guards behind me pulled her away. Pei Hemming stopped feigning stupidity. He stood up, glaring at me with a grim expression. What exactly are you trying to do? I chuckled softly. Since you're not truly mad, that's good. After all, such agony must be endured with full awareness. His face showed no fear. Kill or torture me as you please. I chuckled softly. Take him to the Qingfeng pavilion. As Pei Hemming's face grew increasingly pale, I watched him and continued. From this day forward, you are no longer Pei Hemming. Your name is Yunu. You must not refuse any guest who comes to the Qingfeng pavilion. His lips trembled. How dare you? I am His Majesty's own elder brother. How dare you? I turned to the men behind me. Who is he? They answered in unison, you knew. The late Empress Dowager was imprisoned in the cold palace. Each time Pei Hemming endured torture, I sent someone to recount his suffering in detail to her. Until her mind shattered. She took her own life in the cold palace. After her death, she left me a blood-stained letter. Cui Lian refused to let me see it. She said she feared it would stain my eyes. I snatched the letter from her anyway. It contained curses wishing me to hell. I laughed as I tossed the cloth strip into the fire. I must be one favored by heaven's mandate. How else could I have crawled out of hell to claim their lives? As for Su Fuiying, I had no desire to kill her or the child within her. I simply let her live out her days in misery. But in the days to come, she would taste her own bitter suffering. A year after the grand wedding, Pei Heshuan treated me as he always had. But one day, when I went to the Hall of Diligent Governance to deliver soup, I overheard him plotting with others. I understood. My plan must be accelerated. No matter how docile he appeared, the blood of the Pei family still flowed in his veins. Back then, he was willing to sacrifice his status as a prince. He would even sacrifice his status as a prince to remain by my side, groveling and humbling himself. This alone revealed his nature to be far more cunning than others. I spared Su Fuiying. Yet, in the second month after she gave birth, both she and her infant son died. Simply because the child was a boy. To uproot the weed completely. We both understood the logic. The next step. He would eliminate me. I laced the medicinal soup I gave Pei Heshuan. At first, he remained vigilant. Only after watching me drink it alongside him did he dare take a sip. The soup contained merely aphrodisiac herbs. I grew increasingly clingy, demanding his company. Finally, when I discovered my period was 2 weeks late, I had Cui Lian take my pulse. I was pregnant before any other consort. Thus, my plan could proceed. Pei Heshuan died suddenly in the dead of night. He never trusted me. He scrutinized everything I gave him before using it. Therefore, I didn't need to poison him. His bodyguards were ever present. Only during intimate moments did Pei Heshuan ever relax his guard. Thus, I took the pregnancy-preserving medicine in advance. As we were making love, I dispatched my personal shadow guard to pierce his chest from behind. Struck by an arrow through the heart, he died in utter shock. The terror and rage in his eyes faded away with his last breath. I gently closed his eyes. They say hearing is the last sense to fade after death. I whispered into his ear, "Husband, do not blame me. But if you had not died, I would have been the one to perish. Dashing, I shall govern it better than any of you. Rest assured." 1 year later, my son ascended the throne as emperor. I became Empress Dowager, overseeing the affairs of state. I established imperial examinations and founded schools for women. I lightened corvée labor and promoted water conservancy projects. Later, I ascended the throne as emperor. Su Fuiying made me understand. Women must never be confined to the inner quarters, blinded by the petty affairs of the heart. In my era, women could enter the court as officials. They could step beyond their gates to manage their own businesses. Establishing independent female households became easier. Any woman unwilling to be sacrificed for her father or brother's sake could sever ties with her original family, support herself through her own labor. Later, when I walked leaning on a cane, supported by palace attendants, a lively young girl burst into my sight. She cheerfully called out to me, "Grandmother." I smiled and pulled her into my embrace. The girl's silver bell laughter filled my ears. I knew it was the trumpet of victory. In the distance, the morning sun slowly rose. It was warmth. It was hope. The end.